everyone.
Welcome to an unboxing with Yoseka. I'm Amy.
And I'm Bethany.
And we're excited to be unveiling a project we've been teasing for a while, our YOSEKALAB Two-Month Weekly Planner.
And it's finally here. Do you want to talk about the inspiration that you had for this?
Yeah, so this originally started as, it was originally conceived as a planner sampler where we would have a lot of different weekly layouts that users could experiment with and try pre-planner season to avoid falling into the pitfall that I really truly did fall into and ended up with 7 planners in January, all with different formats, and there were others that I still probably would have gotten if I'd had the chance.
Yeah.
So it was conceived as a way to test out different weekly formats, try using them in different ways and see what actually works for each person, because that's ultimately so subjective.
Yeah, a lot of it kind of roots from the idea of a bullet journal. As if you were to hand draw these layouts yourself, but instead of having to do it manually and space things out yourself, we've done that for you. And I think everyone goes through that. Everyone goes through the process of, oh, this layout's cool, I think that layout could work for me. And then the next thing you know, January 1st comes around and you have 7 or 4 planners and have to somehow sell one or the other because you realize you don't need it.
I didn't sell any of them. They just exist in a box in my room, so yeah.
Oh, well, now you have this, and that'll solve your problem.
Yeah.
Hopefully this will help you for 2024.
I'm actually so excited to really dive in and use one for 2 months.
Yeah.
Really excited. I also think it's great not just as a planner sampler, but as a shorter term planner for like a 2-month project or a 2-month vacation or a stopgap in between planners. Like for example, if you're using a planner but it's ending in, say, October, and you need something just to tide you over until the next year, where you can buy a dated 2024 calendar starting in January, for example. And as just a fun way to really kind of deepen engagement with planning and stimulate your creativity week to week. I like planning as a hobby as well. I think it's a fun way to experiment with different formats. It challenges you to theorize your life in different ways,
right?
And organize it in different ways, either for planning or for logging and journaling. It's really versatile and fun.
Yeah, that's actually a really great point that you bring that up, because oftentimes in the month of October and November, we start to get customers coming in looking for planners, and they don't know what to pick because there's just so many options out there, and they get decision fatigue, and then they feel the pressure to make that decision then and there, or they're scrolling on the website and there's a bajillion tabs open and they don't know how to narrow things down. And hopefully this is the product that will help you make that decision for the coming year. Shall we get into the product itself?
Yeah, I guess let's open it up.
All right, so when you first receive it, you're going to see the planner is wrapped in a sleeve, a plastic sleeve. It has a brown craft paper cover with our logos in the back, as well as the name of the product, YOSEKALAB. And the reason why it's individually wrapped is that in this planner, it comes with an insert with a little love letter from Amy and I, and then inside it is a user guide. We were considering a table of contents, but when we started to get into explaining the various layouts, we realized it needed to be more than just a page, and that's when this idea of a user guide came about. And we'll go over these with you as we go through the pages as well. At the very beginning, you just have a landing page, and then you have some blank notes. We have a 3.7 millimeter grid format throughout the notebook. Whether it's going to be grid, dot grid, it's the same spacing all throughout. People who use Hobonichi will find this spacing very familiar, and for those who are interested in trying out, that's a great place to start, because from here on out it's either going to get much wider or much narrower, down to perhaps 2 millimeters.
Yeah, like the Clyde planners. And then sometimes they do go up to 4 millimeters, even 5 millimeters. And we chose this because it's sort of in between, a little bit on the smaller side, and because this sampler is B6 size, we thought a smaller rule would allow more things to fit in, as opposed to like a 4.0 or 4.5 or something millimeter.
Yeah. If you use this as a project planner, this can be the beginning of the ideation and organization of the project. And then as you go through the monthly and weekly spreads, we end it with the same note space that can also be used as a conclusion or a wrap up of the project. So let's just move on to the next spread. This one is just a standard monthly layout. We should probably say that there are 3 monthly layouts throughout this planner. And then there are
5 different weekly layouts. Okay. One of them has 2 different variations instead of the same exact one repeated. So we can get into that
in more detail.
Yeah. So this is the standard monthly calendar. Very simple, and this is by far the most common monthly calendar layout used across all planners, really. And because this planner more focuses on a variety of weekly layouts than monthly ones, and this is by far the most common monthly one, we chose to use this just once and then include 2 sort of more niche spreads after this.
The second monthly layout that we have is inspired by the PAL, Bushiman's PAL planner.
So this layout we called the vertical Ghant layout, this being a kind of Gantt chart down the middle that can actually this Gantt chart down the middle can actually function as like a double chart where you can track different things on either side. Meanwhile, on the left side, we have a place to write in dates here and blank memo space for kind of whatever you might need. And this is based on Bushiman's PAL planner, and it's a very unique calendar format, and I've never seen one quite like it. I'm still trying to work out the best ways to use it, but I'm really excited to try again. So I'll briefly show this sort of sample spread that I made with the help of Bethany. As you can see, I filled in some dates here. I highlighted some important dates here and then made a kind of key going off on the side here. And then there are priorities and tasks on this side. And on this side, after kind of going through what did and didn't happen for that month, deciding on focuses for the next month. And then on this double Gantt chart, this left-hand side I used as a habit tracker. So this you would kind of look at this way to see how the habits are tracked, while this top side is more of a sort of bar chart that charts like the amount of hours of sleep. 7, 8, 9, and sometimes less, but that's the kind of ideal range. And then what actually happens in this little chart.
And then finally, we have the third monthly layout, which is, we call this the horizontal Gantt. So previously we had the vertical Gantt. The horizontal Gantt, as you can see, is the numbers are placed horizontally at the bottom. You still have the month view at the upper left-hand corner, and then all of this blank space for memos. And then the Gantt is pre-gridded for you with lines to write down whatever you're trying to track, and then the dates to correlate. And we have an example from Often.
Yeah, this one is another very niche format, so we just want to show this example that Often made. This spread was really heavily inspired by the planner that Often uses, which is the Art and Design Visual Life Planner, and it has this kind of also a double Gantt, like horizontally oriented Gantt chart.
It looks like he has project-related tasks here, and then this is a project he was working on, and then he also uses it as memos because he's just listing a pack list.
Oh, this is so smart. Often wrote like a Sunday to kind of get a sense of the weeks, and then basically we'll use this highlighter or marker to block off chunks of time and label what's happening during that time, like check projects and tasks.
And he actually utilizes the overhead space to kind of document larger arches. So down here he has the Yoseka Zoo project stickers, the sticker portion of the project, and then he highlights it at the top to kind of be an end overview for the month. And then he does the same thing here for his Korea trip, which is really cool.
No, this is so great. I'm like really looking at it in depth, and I'm like, wow, Austin's so organized.
He is.
I'm just like, wow, thank you, Austin.
Yeah, so those are all of the monthly views of this 2-month project planner. And we've mentioned this is a 2-month project planner. However, we have three monthly layouts. So really you can pick whichever one you want to choose to use, and then hopefully the third one is just a bonus for you to experiment. Maybe the visual monthly planner is just a little bit too foreign and you're not quite ready to dedicate a whole month of organization in it. This is just something for you to play around with, even though it exceeds the 2-month timeline. Then we go into the weekly spreads, and just to break it down, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 6 layouts total, 4 of which are repeated twice, and then the 5th and 6th are just slight variations of each other. And they are organized by popularity. And
more or less.
Yeah. Right? The first one everyone probably knows by now is we call this vertical schedule because it has the hourly timestamp every day. This will become very familiar for those who use Hobonichi.
The Hobonichi cousin has a slightly expanded version of this where the hours, each one is delineated per hour. We didn't have quite so much space here, so we left the numbers to every third just to reduce visual clutter. But our version is undated and includes a lot of extra sort of memo space that can be used at the bottom. So we have a couple examples just to briefly show. We're going to also talk about these a little bit more in depth in a blog post that is forthcoming. This is Bethany's spread, if you want to talk about it for a minute.
Yeah, so for this one, the way that I like to use it, it's almost like working off of a Google Calendar or any digital calendar. I have larger blockouts for tasks or events that happen over the course of multiple hours, and then I use dots to kind of pinpoint quick tasks or things that don't take more than 30 minutes and are very hard to take up a half of a 3.7 millimeter box. I used this bottom to kind of call out, this was particularly for a trip, so there was a lot of moving around, changing lodging accommodations, so I used the top to kind of call out those bigger multiple day kind of events and happenings, and then at the bottom I used as checklists, things to do, and then at the very top, because I am not awake before 6 a.m. I have 6 rows to write notes with, and then so those are like the main events of the day particular. That's how I organized mine. Do you want to talk about?
Yeah, I'll just briefly show May's, this sample that May made for us. So this is a spread that May made, which May just kind of uses this format really regularly as a general planner. And this one is also very adorably decorated with little stickers. Look at this cat, and look at his little sushi. That's so cute. So also, yeah, it looks like work tasks kind of blocked off during that period of time, and other events, as well as some goals and tasks like listed in this memo space underneath.
And then an ink key.
Yeah,
So cool.
so cute.
So that is the vertical schedule, which if you like to track things hourly and you like the vertical look, this might be for you. The next one we'll introduce is the horizontal memo. This one is very commonly seen. You can find it in the Hobonichi weeks, but in a narrower version. You can find it for travelers, They have exactly this. I think they call it Weeks and Memo.
Muji planners often use this format, and so do a lot of like Leuchtturm and Moleskine
That's
planners
true,
as well.
yeah.
It's very common.
You have the weeks on the left-hand side, and it's cut off and organized into 7 sections, plus a little bit extra at the top. And then plenty of memo space on the right-hand side. We have a couple examples to show you.
Yeah, so I'll just show these examples pretty briefly. Again, we're going to go more into these in a blog post. But this is a spread that Ashley made, and Ashley sort of uses it as a log and journal in her weeks rather than an actual, I guess, sort of planning spread. So here we have some key events noted here and more details and information on the right, along with a little ink note.
Yeah.
And this one here is May's, and this one is definitely more functional. May uses this to plan for more personal and creative projects.
This works really well if you don't have tasks assigned to very particular times in a day, or even on a day specifically. Like if you have a running task list, it's good to have it down on the right-hand side, and then you have major events on the left-hand side that are specific to the date.
Yeah, and in this spread, a neat little design feature that Bethany advocated for are these dots here that kind of divide these sections into smaller ones optionally, and May has used this one here to have a little daily task list, a tiny little daily task list on the side of there, which is really handy.
Cool. I'm glad to see that this function was used.
Yeah, it's really exciting, actually. I'm very excited to try it.
So that's horizontal memo, also a very, very common layout. The next one will be, we call it the vertical memo, which very similar in concept. We're still dividing the week down through over the course of 2 pages, and this time it's vertical. So at the very top, you have a blank section, so no grid, no dot grid, a space for you to put the date down, and then at the bottom, about 2/3 of the page, maybe a little bit more than 2/3 of the page, is a grid memo space. And we do have a couple of examples.
This spread is actually, well, so these are definitely not arranged by popularity, actually, because this one's super uncommon.
That's true.
I've only seen it in 2 like kind of Japanese planners, one by Takahashi and one by Nolte, neither of which we currently carry. But I kind of found it when I was doing some weird planner research months ago, and I was very fascinated by it. So I decided I really wanted to try to include it here. And so here, the way that I used it was I used these spaces at the top to mark off events, and I reserved a little bit of space underneath for tasks. Then mainly on this side, I used it for running tasks and priorities, while this side I saved to journal for about the entire week. Yeah, this can be used super flexibly. There can also be a habit tracker down here, an ink log. This space can be divided into quadrants to track 4 different things, or the entire space can be used for journaling or drawing.
Yeah.
I think it's a really exciting spread.
Yeah.
So much can be done.
This is also for people who, again, don't need to track things daily and have just a lot more things to write about, things to document. This is a great option. And for those who don't want to journal daily and want to just do it by the week, a great layout to try out for next year. After vertical memo, we're going into quadrant layouts. So previously we've been cutting essentially the 2 pages either horizontally or vertically. Now we're splitting the pages in half and then turning them into quadrants. We have quadrant horizontal and then we have quadrant vertical. This is quadrant horizontal, which may also look very familiar. This one reminds me of the Traveler's Passport weekly layout because it's, again, too small to do the vertical and memo layout, so this is their alternative for that.
I've also seen planners from, I think, Leuchtturm and Moleskine that use these, and my grade school planner that I was kind of required to use as a child had this format.
I remember talking about this. I was so surprised to learn that kids in the US had were forced to use planners in school.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I grew up in Taiwan, so it was a little different for us.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I don't know how common that was, but
a lot of people at Yoseka who grew up in the States have talked about
other people have too.
Yeah, talked about their planners that were assigned from school.
My assigned planners, I think, all had this format in like elementary, middle, and high school.
So what did you guys write in
elementary school? Oh, homework.
Just to make sure you knew you had to do homework.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So here is an example spread of horizontal quadrant. Again, this is kind of divided by the little dots that are given that divide the page into thirds this time instead of quarters. And here I have like a food log. I tend to document how often I eat out, and the goal is to not eat out a lot, but as you can see, it's been a pretty nice week for me. And then for this particular layout, I often use to document kind of things that happen throughout the day, and then it's more of an hourly documentation. Oftentimes it's me backtracking and reminding myself what has happened throughout the week, and then it's all visually available.
I'm sorry, you ate out 8 times in 1 week?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
I feel so much better.
Right?
About myself.
It was a rough.
No, I support that. Again, I support anything that makes me feel better about my personal and financial decisions. So
it was a rough week for my bank account for sure. Granted, I didn't pay for every single meal. Mm-hmm. It's just like I didn't cook at home, which I've been trying to do more of. Oh well. So that's the spread. Now we're gonna get into vertical quadrant, which might be a little uncommon, kind of like the vertical memo. We've only seen a handful of examples when doing research.
The vertical quadrant, rather than having the more horizontally oriented ones here, they're portrait format. And this one is a lot less common than the horizontal version. I've only seen it in a few, like PAL, Hours, and one by Takahashi. So this one is very closely based on Bushiman's PAL, which is a planner I'm definitely maybe interested in trying out next year. I mean, first I'll try the spread.
Yes.
But yeah, so this one here, there are 7 rectangles, each for the day, a space to write the date and maybe an important event on top. And then there's a subtly darker dividing line that divides it further into quadrants.
Yeah, but yeah, there's a darker line down the middle and then a ever so slightly darker line horizontally.
Yeah, so if you wanted, you could only divide it horizontally or only divide it vertically.
However it works for you.
Yeah, and then I'm going to shift to show Ashley's spread. So Ashley actually uses the PAL as her work planner. So she sort of mimicked one of those typical spreads here. So because she uses the PAL, she very much formatted this after the PAL by choosing the vertical divider instead of the horizontal, and sort of goes by, actually marks the time here and uses it as a sort of main timeline with big tasks and sort of a breakdown of last week and this week in that top left-hand corner.
So she uses this almost specifically just for work.
Oh yeah, but
because it says Team Ash.
This is mostly her work planner, but then I see she also tried out some normal spreads or kind of daily life things here. Oh well, Friday and Saturday. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, and I love the highlighter accents.
I know.
Yeah.
Great color coordination. So that is the vertical quadrant divided. Is that what we call it?
Yes.
That's this one right here. And then after that, we have finally the last weekly spread is the vertical quadrant memo. And this one is inspired by the Hours Research Project Journal, where I think the journal itself actually gives you prompts for the week to really push for creative experimentation. And we've just stripped it clean and introduced you the bare bone version of it. It's again portrait orientation 7 days a week with an extra memo on the upper left-hand corner. And then the date available for you every day at the upper left-hand corner, and then extra lines at the bottom for memos. So this is a lot more playing space for drawing and less so writing and documenting, I think, by the hour.
So I will show this spread that I made as a brief little example. I chose to use it pretty minimally just to document highlights of each day and things that I particularly enjoyed. So I decorated with some stickers and tapes in this blank space, things that kind of evoked something about that particular day, and just wrote a couple lines in the bottom. And I used this for the last week of my most recent vacation. So like this one just says, plane home.
That's like the story of everyone's life when they're traveling.
Exactly. Right. I thought it was so appropriate. So yeah, this one's really flexible and exciting. I would love to use it to do little doodles and maybe like make a little caption of a story or something.
Exactly. I think this is great for anyone who's trying to do like a daily sketch challenge and don't want a full daily spread as kind of like the Hobonichi Techo or the Cousin, where the whole spread is just for the day. This kind of narrows things down and minimalizes it so you don't have to be too daunted by all the blank space.
Mm-hmm. Gordon also mentioned wanting to try this out as a sort of very minimal planner, not even like putting anything here, just sort of challenging himself to plan less or kind of only put down the very essential information. So kind of like stripping down his day, which I admire.
Right. So like becoming comfortable with negative space.
Yeah.
That's really cool, actually.
Right.
So that concludes all of the weekly spreads.
Yeah.
So once you reach the end of this planner, like we said before, you are greeted with empty note pages, still paged with page numbers. And hopefully this helps you wrap up the past 2 weeks, or 2 months, rather. And then finally a little landing page that ends with just about any planner will have, somewhere where you can put your name down, your contact information should you lose it somewhere, and then just a little greeting from us again. And that concludes this planner.
Yay!
One more thing about the insert. Once you get through the user guide, you will find on the back a planner matrix. This planner matrix is made up of 2 main components, weeks and month, as our planner only has those 2 spreads. We did not include anything else. And Amy did most of the research here for this one, and I just put it into digital documentation for us to print it out. But here you will find common planners that we have heard of, found based on other people's research. Thank you, Amy and Connor. Planners that share the similar layouts that we have showcased in YOSEKALAB. Hopefully this will help you identify and narrow down the planners that you will be using in the future year or years to come. And this can be a great tool for you.
A sort of starting point or a launch pad for finding a planner with the layouts that you enjoyed here. And
there was just a slight printing error with this. The chart is ever so slightly offset and it is missing 1 row. So you will find on the product listing online the accurate and complete version of this planner matrix. So there will be a digitized version as well for you to reference that is cleaner and aligned.
Yeah, so what happened here is that this one, we lost the last row of the chart. So if you kind of cross out this last one, then all of the other information is sort of here, just a little bit skewed. So it is like still usable.
It's usable.
But it's, right, it's a little
incomplete.
A little inconvenient and incomplete.
Yeah.
But we're working on it.
Yes.
Yeah, so that is our planner, and we're really grateful for all of the support that we've gotten from everyone. But I did want to, so I guess before we wrap up, was there anything else you wanted to talk about? I know I wanted to ask you about sort of design choices that you made, because I am obsessed with planners, but I'm extremely not gifted with InDesign. So upon collaborating with Bethany, it became so much of your responsibility to actually like physically make the spreads and impose a kind of universal design on them.
Yeah. Working on planners has been, working with planners has been an interesting experience because it can become as maximalist or minimalist as the manufacturer wants it to be. And since we wanted this to be essentially a sandbox or a blank canvas for the user to experiment with, I've deliberately chosen to go with a very minimal design approach. We tried to keep as little annotation as possible, lines here and there to insinuate where you can put dates and months, but nothing too obvious and limiting so that you, the user, can experiment with using your pens, your inks, whatever decorative elements you want to use, stickers, stamps, whatever. There's room for you to play. So that was most of the intention throughout, and the layouts themselves kind of spoke for how to lay things out. So that was my only design contribution, is to keep things minimal.
And it works so well. I mean, I think they're beautiful.
Oh, thanks.
Could never have made them on my own. They're so wonderful.
Thanks. And what hopes and dreams do you have for this planner?
So my hope and dream on a personal level is to use it, find out what I like, and to not buy 7 planners for next year. I also hope that for the broader world at large, for sustainability reasons, for people's wallets. And I think also some of my hopes and dreams relate to, I guess, go back to our product name, which is YOSEKALAB. And we came to this name through a sort of convoluted process, which was basically me being like, oh, what should we name this planner? The AB planner? The Amy Bethany planner? The Beth-Amy planner? What's like a word that uses both of our initials? And then I thought of lab, and it felt really right. I was like, oh, what would the letters stand for? That was the only problem with it. I was like, oh, but lab should stand for something. And then I was like, I know. Look, it's Amy and Bethany. So that's if you choose to think of lab as an acronym, that is what it's an acronym for. You can think of us. No, but actually, what I felt really fitting is that we think of this planner as a kind of like lab space for experimentation and play, where people can experiment with different methods of planning and different spreads and really just see what works for them. And that's my hope and dream for this planner, is that people have a lot of fun with it, have a lot of fun engaging with it, and sort of learn new things about what they could be doing with planners. And also would love for everyone to share them online. We have a little hashtag for YOSEKALAB, so if you want to share things there and see what other people are doing with these spreads and post your own, that would be so lovely, and we would also love to see them.
Yeah. That's also my hope and dream for this particular planner. I'm hoping that everyone will, even if it's something you're not familiar with, just step out of your comfort zone, try a new layout, and if you hate it, that's okay. And if you love your layout that you've put together, share it with us so that someone else can be inspired by it. It is a collaborative process, I think, planning, journaling. So if you can find inspiration from someone else's layout and try that, maybe that'll be useful for you. That's what I hope YOSEKALAB can do. It brings together people's experimentations.
Yeah, we're really looking forward to it. Thank you again to you all for making your interest in this project helped make it possible, and thank you for continuing to follow it to the end.
Yes,
and
it's finally here.
I know.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Bye.